Hey there YouTube, it's Chris Mack and I am back again with another video. In today's video we're going to discuss hearing loss, hearing aids, and my adventure with getting my hearing aids. I've had these now for about 3 months. I know there's a lot of folks out there who are probably needing hearing aids themselves or have recently got them or are looking at the possibility of needing to get them. So I figure since I've now been there, done that, I could be a resource to you guys out there and see if there's any information or at the very least some comfort and be like, hey, you're not alone. Lots of us are going through this too. So let's do the journey together and let's see if I can be some help to you. Now, when it comes to the specifics of this video, as I'm sure you're probably going to want to nitpick and kind of see what information you're actually looking for here, let me do a brief overview of what we're going to talk about today. We're first going to talk about my specific hearing loss, how that happened, and how I initially coped with that and going forward. Then we're going to talk about hearing protection just ever so slightly. Next, we're also going to talk about the audiologist appointment, going to the ear doctor, what's involved there, what you can expect. Then we're going to discuss my specific hearing aids. I have Oticon, but there are several brands out there, so I can't really speak to all the brands, but I can at least kind of give you an overview of mine if you are looking at the Oticon brand. And then I'll go over a little bit of those settings. They are Bluetooth compatible, so there's a lot of settings on the phone and that you can kind of switch through, and your audiologist can give you some more insight onto what's available whenever it comes to that. And then finally, because I am a nurse and I work in the ICU, I'm going to go over the hearing aids themselves and what that means and how they can help, how they hinder, and how those work out for someone who's working in healthcare. So if any of that sounds like fun, if you're wanting any more information about all that, then stick around for the rest of this video and let's get started. Also, one more thing, I completely forgot to add this in there. Stick around to the very end because at the very end I'm going to go over some words of encouragement and some final ideas. So stick around for that. All right, first let's discuss hearing loss. Whenever it comes to hearing loss, there are many different ways that someone can have some hearing difficulty or hearing loss entirely. Now, I'm not entirely deaf and I was not born deaf, so that brings us into the first one of hearing loss and hearing difficulty, and that's you can be born that way. And that's kind of hard because whenever you think about someone who's been born with hearing difficulty, they don't necessarily know what they've lost, and that's whenever you start to see folks who have speech difficulties as well because they didn't learn to talk before they lost their hearing. So that's one specific thing to talk about, and that's not necessarily my specific case. Another thing is that just a generalized hearing loss, and that's something that happens to us all naturally over time, but there are some things that can speed that process up. Now, for me, part of mine was construction. I was a welder for about 2 years, so that did have some effect on it. However, another way that you can have some hearing loss and hearing damage is through a specific traumatic incident. Now, that one was mine. One Labor Day weekend, the whole family got together. Well, actually, every Labor Day weekend, the family got together for camping, and we were going to shoot some clay pigeons, and all of us were pretty good about, hey, if we're going to be shooting all day versus hunting, where it's 1 or 2 shots, versus all going out to do clay pigeons and you're going to be shooting all day and lots of shots and lots of people shooting. We were a little bit better with that in the whole target practice aspect of, hey, we should get some hearing protection. So we were getting set up for that, and one of my family members, who will remain nameless, probably had a little bit too much to drink being Labor Day weekend before we got everything set up. And next thing I hear is, I'm gonna get that thing. And he draws his pistol, he's got it, and standing behind me, he uses my shoulder as a brace and completely unloads the entire magazine. My ears rang for 2 weeks straight. I couldn't hear at all. I actually ruptured this eardrum on this left side, the typical blood coming out of my ear. And pretty much when the ringing stopped 2 weeks later, I could kind of hear out of this ear and not so much in my left. So that's how I ended up losing my hearing. It was definitely a traumatic experience that happened. It was a one and done kind of deal. But then again, like I said, when it comes to my hearing loss overall, I'm mostly deaf in this left ear, and my right ear has about normal. If normal hearing loss is here for someone my age, I'm about here, and that's one from that incident, and secondly because I did work construction for 2 years. So that's my hearing loss story, how that happened. So pretty much completely deaf in the left, and not so bad Not quite normal hearing loss for someone my age, but definitely lower than where it should be in the right. So that's my hearing loss story. Let's get into hearing protection. All right, the next thing I want to talk about is hearing protection. And that's if you're going to be doing construction, if you're going to be shooting, if you spend time at the range, if you just generally work in a loud work environment, hearing protection is important. Now, Mick over at Carry Trainer did a really awesome video, and I want to give a shout out to him for that video specifically because that video came out right about the time that I got my hearing aids, or again, it was a day or two before, a day or two after the audiologist was like, hey, you're getting hearing aids. And his video was so motivating, so awesome, so comforting, and just made me go, okay, this isn't so bad. And I'm going to link that video down in the description because whenever it comes to the actual hearing protection itself, that's the video you need to watch. I probably cannot give you any more content any better than what he did. The only thing I do want to add to that is whenever it comes to hearing protection and you're in the process of getting hearing aids and you know you have hearing loss, please don't use the, what's the word here? Please don't use the excuse of, well, I've already got hearing damage and I've already got hearing aids. Why do I need hearing protection? Please don't do that because it's a cumulative effect. The hearing you have now is never going to get better, but it can get worse. So protect what you've got left because if you don't, it's just going to keep getting worse, and there's only so much that hearing aids can do. It can only tweak a little bit here, it can give you a little bit more volume there, but at the end of the day, hearing aids aren't going to entirely give you your hearing back. So don't think that, oh, I'm already in this spot, I've already lost my hearing, I've already got hearing aids, I'm not worried about it. Please don't do that. Just know that it's going to progressively get worse over time. So protect what you've got left because it's all you got left. All right, let's get into the next talk here, and that's going to be about the audiologist appointment itself. All right, now we're going to talk about the audiologist appointment itself. So back when I had my initial hearing damage from that shooting incident, I didn't have any hearing tests after that because I was stupid and never went to the doctor, and I probably should have at that point. But anyway, about a year later is whenever I got started in my welding job. And so it was a requirement of when I started welding that we had to go through your hearing test so that way they could gauge the before, so that way after, if there was anything, they weren't liable. Kind of sucks, but I don't blame them. I just want to make sure that if something did happen, they weren't liable because they gave you the hearing protection to use, and if you didn't use it, that's your fault, not theirs. So, understandable. When I took that hearing exam, that was back whenever I was 19 years old, and at that particular time, it was truly just the, when you put the headphones on, when you hear the beep, raise your hand. And it was at that point that I found out that I had lost 70% of the hearing in my left ear, and then I had lost approximately 15 to 25% in my right ear. They had to give me a range because back then they weren't as detailed as they are now. So that being said, let's talk about modern hearing tests because now I'm a lot older and things are different now. So now whenever you go, they do the headphones again and kind of that when you hear the beep, raise your hand. That gives them a general guideline, but then after that, they go into a little bit more than that. Now they also do word repeat, and that's not probably the technical term, but that's what I'm going to call it. But with that, what they do is they put the headphones on again and they test each ear individually, and they actually pick out which waves you're missing and which frequencies that you're missing, so that way they can better adjust hearing aids, because now it's no longer just turn the volume up. Now it's, oh, this is the spectrum or the wave that you're missing. Let's amplify just that, which is really important. The other thing that they do is they also check for syllable loss, which is something that I didn't even know was an option, and I will get to that here in a minute too. But anyhow, so whenever it comes to syllable loss, they'll say a word, and based on what your repeat word is, they can gauge what syllables are missing. And I'll give you an example of this, and I'm not even sure if this was one of the words that they even used, because guess what? I've got the hearing damage, so I didn't get a lot of these right. But one example of that would be if the audiologist said the word spawn, S-P-A-W-N, spawn, and you replied on, O-N, then that means you're missing that SP, the sp. you've got a syllable that's been dropped. And there's several words that are like that, that they can pick out, oh, well, he heard this is what he's missing. And or this is what he said, and that's why he's missing this syllable. So based on that, they can more tweak and give the correct settings and waves and syllable, well, not necessarily the syllable itself, but they can mess with the settings in a way that best benefits your hearing and your hearing loss and what it is that you need. So all of that being said, we're going to get into our next topic, which is the hearing aids themselves. But with that, I want to give one word of warning on this one, and that is beware the hearing aids that you get and that you try. My first experience with hearing aids was whenever my wife had enough and said, you need to go to the ear doctor. And I said, no. And I argued that point for probably much longer than I should have. But there was one point where I said, okay, let's try something. And I ordered a cheapo, generic, basic hearing aid off of Amazon. I was like, hey, I've got the hearing loss in my left. We'll just get this hearing aid. We'll throw it in my left ear, and we'll see if that helps. Don't do that. Please don't do that. Because the hearing aids that you get offline or from an online store, wherever the heck you get it from, it's not set to your hearing and your hearing loss and what you specifically need. It's set to amplify and amplify everything. So, funny story with that. My wife and I were sitting down and she got up to the kitchen. We had the TV set. I could actually hear it normally. Everything is fine, but nothing else is going on in the house. I'm just watching TV. My wife goes to the kitchen. She kind of gives me a look and a thumbs up of like, you're okay? And yeah, everything's okay, but nothing was said otherwise. And then a little bit later, she comes back from the kitchen. She sits down on the sofa and she turns and looks lovingly up at me and says, how's it going? And I jumped off of the sofa, kicking, screaming, tearing, grabbing at this ear, because those hearing aids only amplify. They do not give you only what you need. So when my wife sat down and said, hey, how's it going? I had programmed to hear the TV on the other side of the room, which was working out great. My wife wasn't on the other side of the room. She was about 3 inches from my ear, and despite her talking at a normal level tone, that's not what it sounded like to me. So if you are going to get hearing aids, go to the audiologist. Get the right ones. Get the ones that they program for your ears and your hearing loss, because you will have a much better result. That being said, let's talk about the hearing aids themselves. Okay, let's talk about my hearing aids themselves. Now again, there are lots of different companies and brands out there. I can't speak to all of them, but I can speak to mine. And mine specifically are by the company Oticon. And let's go ahead and go over that here. So first, let me show you the hearing aids. Well, I'll show you one. They're pretty much the exact same, except for I've got one on the right, one on the left. And so starting off with these, this right here is the hearing aid itself. This is where all the magic happens. And this is what picks up the volume and the sound and does all that translating, shoots that down the cable here to the earbud. And then this little coil here is what keeps that in place in your ear whenever it's in your ear. When it comes to the microphones, as I said before, there are several different ones. Now, this piece itself is the same for both ears, so they just mess with the settings for which microphones need to be picking up. That said, I'll kind of point out a few. It's hard to see, but there's a microphone on this side at the top, on this side at the top. There's another one right here, and there's one down here at the back. And then here at the top, these are the only two buttons that are on here. Now, you can't change settings with these buttons, or if you can't, I think one day I actually was able to do it, but I have no idea how. So when it comes to settings, it was a lot easier for me to just use the app and do that. But whenever it comes to volume, I can turn the volume up and down with these buttons. I can also turn them on and off. And that is the hearing aid itself. The other thing to talk about here is the cone. Now, there are different ones for different size ears. They can get bigger or smaller. And then there's also vented and non-vented. All right, here's the close-up of the ear cones. And the one on the left, as you can see, is completely solid. And the one on the right has got those ventilation holes. And I'll discuss what those are for and how they're useful here in a moment. And then underneath, and the reason I'm bringing this up now so I can talk about this other part. So the cone, you can change those out, and I think I've changed them out twice since I've had these. You don't need to really change these all that often, but I do recommend taking them off and cleaning them a little bit and then putting them back on. So replace, not all that much, clean pretty frequently. I do that. So underneath this cone here, though, you pop that off, and there's a little itty bitty filter there, and that's to keep earwax from actually getting into the port that's giving you the sound. So I'm going to pull this out here. It also ships with this, and if you need more, you just go get more. It's not a big deal, but this has got several in here. But you pop this out. I'm going to get real close to the camera here and see if it'll pick that up. Maybe not. Let's see here. Okay, it doesn't want to focus. I apologize for that. Anyhow, this little white tip here, that's the wax filter for your earwax, keeping it out of there. So what you do is you will pop here on this end, you pop onto that so you can get a hold of the old one. It pops out, then you scoot down to this one, you pop that one in, and it comes off. Then you throw this piece away. I have not had to replace that. When I spoke with my audiologist, who is absolutely amazing, if you're looking for a recommendation for an audiologist and you live in the Colorado area, let me know down in the comments, and I will definitely get you her information. But anyhow, my audiologist also wears the same hearing aids that I do, and with that, she said that she's never changed her wax filters either. It's not something that you need to do. It's something that if you can kind of tell, like, hey, I'm hearing a little bit differently today than I was yesterday, nothing's changed, you might want to check that filter. So that's not something you do frequently. I doubt I will probably ever go through this entire pack. I might go through one or two probably. I don't know. But anyhow, there's that. So, yeah, let's keep going here. Give me 2 seconds to put this back in. My apologies, folks. All right, now that that's back in, it also came with some cases, which are really cool. Came with 2 of them, and I'm not sure if that's because I got 2 different ones, and I got 1 case for each, or how that worked out. But anyhow, it comes with this little leather one. I don't like this. I despise it because it's... Take this back out again. Yeah, you got to do a lot of torquing, and I just don't feel like that's safe. That you can still crush in this thing. It's nice, but not my favorite. Then we also got a hard case. Now this is really nice because height-wise, they fit in here. You're not crushing them. I can get both hearing aids in here. And something to note that's important as well is these are not waterproof. So showering in them, no. Swimming in them, no. Raining, be careful. I think you should be all right, but don't quote me on that. I'm not saying you can walk in the rain with your hearing aids in. All I'm saying is I think you'd be all right. But definitely don't take a shower, don't take a bath, don't go swimming with them in. So whenever I go to the gym and I do some swimming there, this is really nice because I don't have to worry about them being crushed. I can throw this whole thing in my bag, and I don't have to worry about it whenever I go to the range and I take these out and put my earplugs in. I can throw this in my range bag, and I don't worry about them being smashed or hurt. So this case I really like a lot. All right, something else is that if you do have a wax buildup and you do have to change that little white filter, they do give you this little, I don't want to call it a comb or a pick or whatever it is, but it's got a little metal loop here that gets right in there, and you can kind of pull all of that out, kind of like a Q-tip for your hearing aids. So that's what this is, and then they give you a little cleaning cloth as well. Last but not least, let's talk about power, because that's important. So these hearing aids, you can get the exact same hearing aid that either runs on the old school batteries that we know from our grandparents' generation of batteries. You can get those, and with my specific insurance plan and my audiologist, when you run out of batteries, you go get more. So I did not make the choice that I did based on cost. I made the choice that I did for ease of use. So you could do batteries, and that's absolutely fine if that's what you want to do. I went the rechargeable way. So this is the dock here, and it gets plugged in via USB. Now I went that route because USB charging is a lot easier today than it used to be. So in the truck, I can plug this into the cigarette lighter. That's not a problem, and I can get these charged. I can put this into a cube that goes into the wall, and I can charge it via the wall. I can also plug this into a power bank and use it that way, into a solar charger and power bank and charge it that way. And that's why I like that, because this is a lot easier to use a USB port than it used to be. And then whenever it comes to charging, it's not like you have to open anything up or plug it or charge it or anything like that. It's literally, there's the little dock. This sits in here so that way it doesn't get messed up or bumped on anything. You drop it in, you're done. It charges. Now let's talk about battery life and use of it. So battery life, they say you can get about 18 hours out of a single charge, and I would agree with that. I have never had these go dead on me I got up, I put them in, I went to work, I came home, used them for the rest of the evening with no problems, went to bed. I've never had a problem with these dying too soon. So the other thing to take into account with that is that they are Bluetooth compatible. You can use your phone, and there's an app that comes along with it, and I'll show you some settings here in a minute. But along with that, you can hear your phone through that. So you're still talking to the phone like you would normally talk. You hold it out here, kind of like if you had it on speakerphone. But instead of it being on speaker itself, it's playing right into your hearing aid. So I will admit, you kind of look crazy if you're talking to your wife at the grocery store through your phone of like, hey, hon, what kind of cereal did you want again? People are kind of looking at you because they have no idea. If they don't actually physically see your hearing aids, they have no idea that you're talking to somebody that's on the phone. And I've also, because I'm a button-up shirt kind of a guy, I've also put my phone in my top pocket and been talking to my wife while walking in and out. People think I'm nuts. I don't care. So anyhow, that, and then you don't have to worry about headphones anymore, because you can also play your music through your hearing aids, which is a really cool thing. That all being said, if you do use them as your headphones and you're listening to music all day, that does cut down on the battery life. I'm not going to say significantly. I would say probably an additional 30%. So to give you an idea, get up in the morning, go to work, use my hearing aids as normal, maybe make a phone call or two and use them with that, and not listening to any music throughout the day. I would say from get up to go to bed from 100%, and you can monitor that in the app, how much percentage of power you have left in your hearing aids. I would say over the course of that, I drop to maybe 50 to 40% before I go to bed putting them in. If I were to use them if I were to use them to listen to music or something throughout the day, like I'm home and I'm working on cleaning around the house or doing stuff like that, and I've listened to maybe 4 or 5 hours of music throughout the course of the day, then I would be down to probably about 20%. I have not drained these batteries and been like, oh crud, I need to recharge these. I've never had that issue. So that's just a heads up whenever it comes to the battery power there. And I think that's it whenever it comes to that. Next, we're going to get into talking about the settings.
So first, I apologize for the cruddy screenshot here. I'm still getting used to the video editing portion of doing YouTube videos. Anyway, that said, let's start off with the settings that are in my particular hearing aids. And these aren't going to be universal for everyone. They're going to be, it depends on what your needs are and what your audiologist says that you need and what they're able to program in, and also what model of hearing aids you're using and what brand. So I'll just give you a brief overview of mine so that way you can kind of get an understanding of what's out there. We're going to start with P1, which is universal. That's your get up in the morning and go. As soon as they turn on, this is the default setting that they go into. And I should also mention that all of these settings do have a volume control as well. You can turn them up, turn them down. And you can even mute them if you need to. Our next setting is P2, restaurants, which is kind of self-explanatory. But because the hearing aids themselves have more than one microphone in it, what this does is it mutes all of them but the one that's shooting straight ahead. So in other words, when you're looking forward, the microphone that's facing forward as well, it only has that microphone on. So that way when you're in a restaurant and it's loud and it's noisy and you got the couple behind you are arguing, the waitress is clanking plates to the left or the right of you, the only microphone that's working is the one that's right in front of you, and you can hear your loved ones better without all the background noise. Now the next one is P3. That's small group and TV, and I'm not sure that's a great title for this one because it's not necessarily what I use it for. I call this one my supersonic hearing because it just intensifies everything, and I use this one primarily at work so that way I can hear bed alarms and chair alarms, I can hear call bells, I can hear vent settings and stuff like that. Well, not hear the settings, but I can hear vent alarms, but I can hear a lot better with that setting. However, because it's so intense, your ears get tired of it really quickly. So it's not something that you necessarily want on for all day long, but whenever you're in those moments where you really need to be on point with your hearing, this is the setting to have. The next one is T4, and that's tinnitus setting. So when you get that ringing in your ears, especially towards the end of the day, and it's getting quieter, and you just start to hear that ringing, this is the setting that you want to be in now. And this setting has nice, gentle ocean waves in the background, just loud enough to kind of drown out your tinnitus, but not so loud that you can't hear what's going on. Frequently when I get home from work, I'll throw this setting on while I'm having dinner with my wife, and it's very easy for us to have a conversation, but the ringing is gone. And then the last one is iPhone mic. And what this one does is it turns your iPhone into the microphone for your hearing aids because they are Bluetooth connected. You can then go ahead and take your, let's say you're in a class and you're trying to learn, but whenever you turn your hearing aids up, now you're hearing everyone around you a little bit louder. That doesn't necessarily make the teacher louder. So then you can take your phone and you can take it up towards the teacher, maybe set it on their desk and be like, hey, I've got hearing problems. This is to connect to my hearing aid so I can hear what's going on in class, and then you're good to go. So again, generalized overview of what possibilities are out there for hearing aid settings, but that doesn't necessarily mean all hearing aids have these ones. It'll depend on your brand and what your audiologist sets up for you.
I was actually talking with one of the doctors that I work with in the ICU, and he wears, let me rephrase that, he should wear his hearing aids more frequently, but he has had issues with them, and I'll talk about that more in healthcare portion here at the end. But suffice it to say, I got a chance to look at his app that he uses for his hearing aids. They are extremely similar, and but they are different brands entirely. But because they are similar, I'm going to guess that if you do have hearing aids that are set up with an app, that odds are a lot of the apps are going to be generally speaking the same. I cannot say that definitively, but looking at his and looking at mine, I was like, oh, that's pretty much the same software that I'm running. So just keep that in mind. And the other thing is, whenever he looked at my hearing aids as well, he was like, oh yeah, mine look a lot like that. That's how they work in the fittings and the cones. So the moving parts and everything. I'm going to guess from company to company and brand to brand that while there are going to be differences, I don't think there are going to be a lot of differences. Okay, last but not least, let's get into the hearing aids portion of this that ties in with healthcare. So, as I spoke about in the settings portion of this, there's a setting that I use specifically for work because I can hear a little bit better. Now, when I also showed you that little clip of the cones themselves, how the one's aerated, that's really important. The other thing is that these go pretty deep into the ear. Not so deep that they hurt, but they go deep enough for, wait for it, your stethoscope. Okay, so what does having hearing aids and using your stethoscope mean? Now, I know there are products and apps, and even the physician I spoke with about his hearing aids, we even discussed like, wow, these are really expensive. They do have stethoscopes that hook up with an app that you can then use, and it translates that directly into your hearing aids, so that way you can get the sound that way. They're expensive. I've briefly looked into that. I'm not sold on it yet. If I do, we'll definitely make a video on that. However, all of that being said, during the last few years of healthcare, having the hearing difficulty that I have in the left ear, I'm used to not hearing with my left ear whenever I be listening to heart sounds and lung sounds. So that's not a problem. So now we go to the cones. So the solid cone in this ear means I'm not getting any hearing from the outside that's not into this ear, that's not from the hearing aids themselves. It's kind of blocked that off. Now, when I spoke about how you see no vent versus you see vents, there's a little bit of vent. You do want a little bit of airflow in there. You don't want it to be completely constricted, closed off. But other than that little micro air vent, there are no vents in this left ear. So any hearing I'm getting in this ear is strictly from the hearing aids themselves. That said, on this side, I've got the big aeration vents. Now, what that's for is that, one, I can get hearing coming from my hearing aids themselves, but more importantly, I can also hear noise that's going on this side and it's not being blocked by the cone. So that being said, they are deep enough in my ears that I can put these in and it doesn't bother me. I don't feel any pressure on the hearing aids. I don't feel that these set any different. But because of those big vents that are on this side, I can hear everything coming out of here in this ear. Now, I haven't been able to hear out of this ear with a stethoscope for years anyhow, so that's not new. That wasn't a learning curve. It's, oh, I can still hear out of my right ear. Awesome, because that's what I've been doing for years now anyway. Those vents are very helpful. So using a stethoscope with these hearing aids, not a problem if you have the vented cones, which, after talking with my physician, and one of his biggest complaints, well, not my, well, the physician that I work with in the ICU, that was his biggest complaint. He's like, I can't hear heart and lung sounds. And that's a lot of our job. And I said, well, do you have vented cones? Wait, what? I can get vented cones? Yeah, you can get vented cones. I took mine out on a show, and he's like, I was not given that option. So going back to audiologist here, make sure you have an audiologist that's knowledgeable with what they're doing, what products they're giving you, what tones and sounds they're giving you, and tell them before you get started, hey, I work in healthcare. I need to use a stethoscope. Hey, I know there are vented cones out there. Can you get me vented cones? Because those cones aren't even just a singular size. You can get big vents, you can get small vents. The ones I have specifically say that they are open versus the ones I had before, which were smaller, and I couldn't hear with those either. So completely solid, definitely couldn't hear my stethoscope. She gave me a set that had some smaller vents in it than the ones I have now. I could hear them like, that's a little too muffled still. So these are as big as you can get, I believe, for my specific size of cone. And these work awesome. I can do my job again, and that's amazing. And on top of it, I can still hear. The only thing I will say with that is that when you use your stethoscope normally and you put these in, then you're only hearing what's coming out of here. Well, with your hearing aids in, you need to make sure the room is quiet, or maybe you get into your app and you mute your setting over on this ear, because you can do one side or the other volume control, or you can do both all as a whole. So I would make sure you mute the side that you're going to hear out of with these, because where's the microphone? Behind your ear, which means you've got that in. Family members complaining behind you of, hey, why aren't you doing this faster? Da 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 da. You're going to hear that in your ear as well, because that's in too. So make sure the room is quiet, or turn the settings down in the ear that you're going to be hearing out of, or both entirely. But you don't have to take them out. It's make sure the room's quiet, or adjust your settings. Make sure you do that, and you'll be absolutely fine for using your stethoscope. Have no issues there. Now, the only thing that I have had issues with, and recently I had a patient that was on isolation that did involve me having to wear a face mask. That sucks with these hearing aids. It really does. Because you put it on, you're fine. You're good. You take it off every single time, beyond a shadow of a doubt. You take off the over-the-ear mask for your face protection, your hearing aids are coming off with it. And even the physician that I was working with the other day, who we were talking about hearing aids, even he said, yep, I completely threw my hearing aids away. Thank goodness for that. The app has the Find My Hearing Aids app, because they are Bluetooth connected. It can pick up where they are. He said, because I had to go back down to where I was, where I did this procedure at, and there was nobody there, and yep, there they were in the trash can. But at least it got me to, oh yeah, your hearing aids are here, and I could find them, because it took me 10 patients later to realize, oh wait, my hearing aids are missing. So that is one thing to keep in mind. If you are wearing a face mask that is over the ear, make sure you keep track of your hearing aids, because when you take that mask off, your hearing aids are coming with them. All right. We're going to do a little bit of a close up here, and then I'll get out of your hair. Thanks for sticking with me this long. I know this has been a long one. All right, last but not least entirely for this video, I do want to talk about the concept of hearing aids and the fact that you might be getting them or needing them. First, don't think that you're alone. If you've got hearing damage or incomplete loss, I am so sorry for the situation you find yourself in. Don't think you're alone. There are lots of people out there on YouTube making videos about this. Well, probably, maybe not a lot, but there are a few. There are definitely lots of people. Every time I go to the audiologist, I'm not the only person in the waiting room. And whenever I do go to the audiologist, it's not a, hey, I need an appointment. Oh, we can fit you in today, or hey, we can fit you in tomorrow. Getting an audiologist appointment, you're probably looking at a pretty decent wait. So don't be shocked by that either. And the reason there's a decent wait is because there's a lot of people who need hearing aids and who use them and who are going through the same thing that you are. So you are not alone. Don't feel like, oh my gosh, this is just me. Don't feel like you're too young either, because like I said before earlier in the video, some people are born with hearing loss. That's as young as you can get and have hearing loss or damage or hearing difficulty. So don't think that you're too young either. That it happens. And again, it's also just a natural progression. So if you are watching this video when you're older, then hey, awesome for sticking out a lot longer than some of us who are younger and going through this. So it happens. It's going to be okay. There are fixes. There are people out there who can help you. There are people out there who want to help you. You're not alone with this. I can't emphasize that enough. Don't feel like it's your fault. Don't feel like that because you need hearing aids that you're suddenly old. Don't feel like that because you need hearing aids there's suddenly something wrong with you. Life happens. You don't choose everything, but you can choose to make that step to get help, to get hearing aids. And I'll tell you this, despite the fact that I'm pretty happy with these, the person who's most been affected by my hearing aids and me getting them is my wife, and she could not be happier because now, before, whenever I drive everywhere, because if we're in the car together, she had to sit on my right so I could hear her. If we go to dinner, she had to sit on my right so that way I could hear her. She's always had to be on my right. So now that I have the hearing aids, she can be on my left, and that's new, and that's cool for her. And now she doesn't have to scream to just get my attention to be like, hey, I need to talk to you. Okay, wait, what? Now she doesn't have to scream to just initially get that attention. Now she can just talk to me like, hey, hon. So don't just think that getting hearing aids is solely for you either. It's for you, it's for your family, it's for your loved ones, it's for your coworkers. Doing this is not going to benefit just you, it's going to benefit a lot of other people as well. That said, don't do it for them, do it for you. So, my name is Chris Mack. This video has been about hearing aids, hearing loss, and my crazy journey along that. I hope maybe not everything, but I hope something that I've said today has been helpful to you. And if you've got any questions, comments, concerns, please put those down in the comment section below. I will try to answer whatever questions I can. And again, if you are looking for an awesome audiologist and you live in the Colorado area, definitely let me know. I can get you that information. All right. Have a good one. Thanks so much for watching.